Why Do I Dream Those Dreams is a 1934 Warner Brothers cartoon directed by Freleng and written by Tom Armstrong, and we have voices provided by Melvin J, Gibby, Beatrice Hagen, Purv Pullen, and the Varsity Three. And honestly, I don't think it's a very good cartoon. I feel like if I didn't have the background context, I wouldn't have the slightest idea what was going on. This is based on the story of Rip Van Winkle, which I honestly know next to nothing about. Other than being aware of the story, I actually didn't really know what it was about. I don't think I've ever seen any kind of adaptation, so when I realised that's what it was about, I did a tiny bit of reading, by which I mean I read the Wikipedia article, and understood the source material. And then watching this cartoon, I was keen to see how they'd condense this into a 7-minute short. And honestly, it's not clear what's going on. I don't think it makes sense. But if you have the background information, then it absolutely makes sense. Should a cartoon rely on background information or the source material? Or should it be logical? Well, maybe logical is not the right word for this kind of narrative, but should you be able to understand what's going on without any background knowledge? And that's up for debate. But personally, I don't think they did a good job of telling the story based on the very little experience I have with the narrative. If you're a fan of Rip Van Winkle and you have seen other adaptations, you've read it, I'd be very keen to know if you think it's decent. But from my perspective, it isn't. Rip Van Winkle is a story about a guy who falls asleep for 20 years and misses the American Revolution. This is a cartoon about a guy who's sent off into the woods to do some work and has this dream and then wakes up with a beard, obviously depicting that time has passed, but it doesn't really make any sense. If I didn't know what on earth was going on because of the source material or Wikipedia, then I wouldn't have really understood that he'd been asleep for so long, and it just wouldn't have made any sense. So I don't think it's very good as a narrative. But the actual animation is pretty interesting because he meets, well, while he's dreaming in the forest, there are all kinds of interesting characters. He takes his dog with him, who looks not completely unlike Pluto, and that part of it works well. We have some good music and sound effects. The design of the forest is nice. We have a lot of, attention to detail with the plants and the trees and the flowers, and then the little characters in the forest. They all look really good. And the character of Rip Van Winkle is interesting enough, but as I said, it just, as a narrative, if you'd asked me to watch this with no knowledge of the source material and then tell you what had happened, I don't think I would have been able to accurately portray it. So I don't know. It's up for debate. I'd love to know what you think of it. If you have a strong opinion either way, should I have been able to enjoy this with no knowledge of Rip Van Winkle or what it was about? Should it have made sense otherwise? Or would it have been my fault if I hadn't read the source material? Would that have been on me, or is it on the cartoon? I don't know. I don't know if there is a right or wrong answer there, but either way, the animation is good, the music and sound effects are good, the structure of the narrative is not one that I would recommend without at least having a tiny bit of background knowledge. And it is tiny for me. My background knowledge is Wikipedia, ostensibly. And beyond that, I don't know anything. So I'd love to know what you think, and also where your opinion is coming from, whether you're a fan of Rip Van Winkle or you'd never really knew what it was about up until now. Either way, it's not that impressive as a story, but as an animation, it's pretty good.